Hello, everyone out there. My name's Lloyd. I reside in North Queensland, in the beautiful North. I'm a Cowboy supporter. It's one of the few things I had in life until I come in contact with Blue Knot. And prior to becoming in contact with Blue Knot, I have been with other foundation mobs. And what I've received with this mob, look, I can't explain it. I've also got friends that have been through Blue Knot, and we're just surprised at how caring and understanding these people are. They really do. They listen to you. They care about you. I've been with them now for well over 12 months. And me and a couple of people I know, we go to group sessions here, have always spoke highly of Blue Knot and the people we're involved with. I mean, that support. And look, you can't go wrong. It takes time. It takes time to open up. But you've got to start somewhere. Now, I didn't start this until a few years ago, so I've suffered all my life. The nightmares and that are gone. I'm on the mend. I think I've mended, but I don't want to say that, because if I fall back down, I don't think I will, but I've got the support there. These people are only a phone call away, and you must always remember that when you're feeling suicidal, mate, you've got to sit back, don't do anything stupid, pick up the phone, and my advice is to ring Blue Knot. I can't put it any other way. The treatment I've had off them is the recovery is a miracle. I did have a psychologist a few years back who was very good up in Townsville, but then he left. He left the district. I had another psychologist with him, but I couldn't open up again. I'd been through everything with this psychologist, and that's how I come on to. I joined up with another mob up here. I wasn't receiving the attention I think that we need as individuals, because we're all suffering, but we're all suffering with different things. And our suffering it's an individual thing. And that's why it's most important. You've got to talk to people about what's wrong, because without them, you're not going to get help. I've been very fortunate. Well, I'm actually a Christian. I think God showed the path as far as Blue Knot's concerned. I did ring another national foundation, and I was told they would get back to me in a couple of days. At that particular point in time, I was suicidal. Now, I decided to make the second call because I was given two numbers. I'd never heard of Blue Knot, because I live up here. And I rang them straight away. They took my case on straight away. There was none of this, we'll get back to you tomorrow, what's the problem? I told them I was suicidal. They acted on that straight away. They said, look, we're here to help you right now. I haven't looked back from that day. And when they say they're going to ring you, or if you're doing any sort of taking help off these people, they keep their word. And you can live day to day knowing that person, you've got that person to back you up when you need it. Either way, when you're down and out in the dumps, you can ring them. And mate, I tell you what, it's better than having thoughts, ideas of killing yourself, because I've been there half a dozen times, and I tell you, it's so easy to slip through the net and do yourself in when you don't need to. There's no need for it. A lot of people suffering in the world like us, and I'm telling you now, there's a lot of us that are getting help, and you can only look at the ones that are getting the help and look at the improvement in their lives. I know what it's done to me, and listen, I can't say this hard enough, get the Blue Knot. Just give them a ring. I beg you, ring them. You'll have the same experience as what I had. I can't add much more to that except to say I haven't written anything down. I'm telling you this from my heart, and I won't go into my story. But I tell you what, all stories are personal, and they treat it personal too. Always remember that. They're not going to go around spreading your story around. It's between you and who's ever looking after the counsellor. So always remember that. And you might not open up straight away, but you will eventually. You spend enough time with them, you will open up, and it gets easier. It got easier for me. There's drugs that I was taking that I don't take anymore. I don't need them. So that's another bonus I got out of that. My appetite's picked up. My friendships, my going out and meeting people, big difference. Every day now I go for a drive. I play with the animals. I go for a walk. I'm actually starting weightlifting, and my life's been turned around. I'm at a point now where I think I'm healed. But as I said, they haven't given up on me, and they've told me, we want to stay with you. We want to see you through to the end. Now, mate, I cried. I come home and cried when they told me that, and that's the honest truth. My daughter looked at me. She said, "Dad, you're very lucky that you got in contact with Blue Knot." And I can't recommend them any better than that, honestly. If you got a problem, please pick up the phone and ring Blue Knot. The number's there. I haven't got it. I'm not doing this for an advertisement. I'm doing it to help them and myself get to you to the point that you can be helped. All is not lost. And I've lost friends through suicide, so I know what I'm talking about. So please, I just ask you, pick up the phone, call Blue Knot. That's what they're called. And I'd like to thank you for your time listening to me. And may Jesus bless each and every one of you. And if there's a problem there, trust me, pick up the phone. This ain't just a message. This is a message from, I'm a Christian, as I said. It's from the bottom of my heart. I love yous all out there. We're families. All us people who suffer are all part of the one family. Never forget that. Blue Knot has become my family, and it's become a few other people's families that are in the same position as I am. So they become a family. So if you want to be helped, go for them. Pick up the phone and ring Blue Knot. And hopefully, even if only one of you pick up that phone and are saved through this, well, then I've done some good. And I was a rebel as a kid, and I thought I was no good. I've gone through all my life thinking that I was no good. Even with all the courses and things I achieved, I was never happy. Now I'm starting to find a bit of happiness, and I'm 63 years old. And yeah, I'm putting it behind me. And I advise you, pick up that phone. I can't stress it enough. Please pick up the phone. That's all I ask. I'm getting a little bit teary here now, but that's what happens. That's why you have to pick that phone up. Okay, so I'm going to leave you guys with that message. And like I said, God bless you all, eh? Thank you for your time.
Trauma can be resolved. It's very important that people realise that. The brain, as we now know, is what we call neuroplastic. Used to be the case that people thought if you had an overwhelming negative experience, you couldn't really recover fully from that. The best you could do would be to compensate. But we now know that the brain is not hardwired but neuroplastic, which means that it's capable of regeneration. We're very vulnerable to extreme overwhelming stress. We know that, particularly the developing brain. So we're not wanting to minimise the negative effects of trauma at all, but it's equally important to know that with the right support, it is possible to recover from trauma. One of the most exciting things about the recent research is the finding that it is possible to recover from even severe forms of trauma and abuse. And this is a message we're very much wanting to get out, because it wasn't so long ago, and even still, the message was, if you've experienced deep trauma, the best you can hope for is to cope with it and compensate, and maybe you'll never be fully functioning again. I mean, directly and indirectly, that's what we know survivors have heard. However, we now know that that actually is not the case, that it is possible to recover from even severe forms of trauma. Obviously, this will depend on the intensity of the trauma, the duration, the person, the context. It's not a one-size-fits-all. But far more healing is possible. It's possible to attain quality of life when you haven't experienced it before. So this relates to having come to terms and having been able to process in your body the distressing physiological and emotional responses of trauma. It's possible for people to learn to do that, to experience a sense of connection that previously they thought was unattainable for them. And best practice trauma treatment is very much sending out a positive message that recovery is possible. It might have been thought in the past, oh, it's just touchy-feely, it's wishful thinking, it's false hope. That is not the case. It is possible to recover from childhood trauma, and we need to be sending that message out, and certainly services and health providers need to be sending that message out. There have been studies that show very clearly that when people have processed their own trauma, their well-being increases and their relationships are positive. Daniel Siegel, he's in the United States, he's written extensively on this. There's a number of people and clinicians and researchers who are working on showing the positive effects of appropriate treatment of complex varieties of trauma. And it's about connection, about relationship with oneself, relationship with others, It's also natural to respond positively when we're in a safe context. So when those inputs that counteract the negative effects of the disruptive traumatic experience are put in place in a range of ways, whether it's by therapy, often it is by therapy, but changing our relationship to people, implementing the safety, the trustworthiness, that activates the healing mechanism. And yes, studies have shown that people are able to attain a secure attachment, a sense of self-soothing, self-regulation that imparts not only quality of life to them but improves their relationship for their kids.
I think a big part of recovery as well is a sense of feeling reconnected back to belonging somewhere, because I think survivors often feel so alone and so isolated and so alone with their experience. So I think recovery can also be about learning that my experience is not a solitary experience. Other people have had similar experiences, other people have coped in similar kinds of ways. I'm not alone. I think that can be a big part. Finding your place again, you know, in society where maybe you feared you'd never be a part of society again. You know, there can be so much shame that people can just completely isolate. So finding that it's safe enough to reconnect can be a part of recovery. Recovery is different for everybody, but I think, you know, I think there's some common elements that can be about being witnessed and learning about safe relationship again. And learning about relationship to self is a big part too. Forming a different relationship to self, a loving relationship to self, instead of a punishing relationship to self.
If I can say anything to someone who's watching this, who's in a really dark, hard place, you can obviously see I've just connected with some of those harder parts of my life. Just don't give up. Please don't give up. Sometimes I call it climbing the mountain, and it is hard work. It's hard work, but it's good work. And if you do the small, bite-sized pieces, you can't do it all at once. It's too overwhelming. But don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to start unpacking it, because the reward is so worth it. So I just call it climbing the mountain step by step, and one day you enjoy a view that you never thought you'd enjoy.
Another part of recovery is the relationship. So, you know, it's said you can't heal in isolation. I think you can do a lot of healing actually in isolation as far as top-down stuff, education. A lot of survivors get on the internet these days and educate themselves, find out, you know. And I think you can do a lot of making sense of and understanding that way. But as far as healing is about having a new experience, the brain changes through having a new experience. And I can only have a new experience in relationship with someone, because I was wounded, for example, in relationship to someone. People are wounded in relationship to someone in childhood trauma. And so healing is in relationship to someone. And it's forming all those new neural linkages around relationship, around safety, around trust. So I think, you know, another part of recovery for survivors of childhood trauma is relationships, safe relationship. And that might be with your therapist, it might be with a service, it might be with your partner, it might be with your children, but it might be with your friendship circle. But it's a way of starting to form safe relationship, a sense that relationships can be different and the brain changes around that. I think that's another big part of recovery.
When you can't see that there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, it is incredibly dark. You know, I went through some pretty dark places where I felt like I was in this vortex of, I don't want to live. I don't want to be in this. I can only share from my experience that it's worth the work. The dark spaces can actually be where you open the door, and to really sit in those dark spaces. They want to be heard. You're dark for that reason. And they want to be heard, they want to be expressed. And I suppose if you're not ready to see it, you won't see it. But I just give that space of hope that you can, I am sitting at the other end of that spectrum, and I've met many people that have, and you don't have to be consumed by those moments, because they're not now. Now is completely different. Life is so much bigger than that. So really trust and share your experiences to evolve beyond that space.
And to people that are listening who are going through their recovery, I would say find something that lifts your soul, that lifts your soul. Music, art, nature, animals, there's whatever it is that helps you look up.